We continue from where we stop. We are looking at activity-based costing. We started this topic last week. We explained the concept of activity-based costing. Activity-based costing, a quick recap of our last discussion. We said activity-based costing is a costing method, or let me put it this way, it's one of the modern costing methods that was developed and introduced so as to correct the deficiency of the traditional absorption costing system. Under the traditional absorption costing system, overhead cost is absorbed using the production volume. Under the traditional absorption costing system, overhead cost is absorbed using the production volume. This production volume is measured by labor hour or machine hour. In other words, under the traditional absorption costing system, overhead cost is absorbed using labor hour or machine hour. Accounting for overhead using labor hour or machine hour could give rise to incorrect product costing. Accounting for overhead cost by using labor hour or using machine hours could result in incorrect product costing. Incorrect product costing could lead to incorrect selling price. Now, because of the limitation of the traditional absorption costing system, the activity-based costing is developed. Now, what is activity-based costing? Activity-based costing is a costing method that accounts for overhead by taking into consideration the activities that has given rise to the overhead. I will repeat that. Activity-based costing is a costing method that accounts for overhead by considering the various activities that has given rise for the overhead. These activities are used to account for overhead. Instead of accounting for overhead by using a single factor, instead of accounting for overhead by using a single factor, the activity-based costing accounts for overhead by considering the various activities that has given rise to this overhead. These activities are used to account for overhead. These activities are called the cost driver. The cost driver are the factors that has given rise to overhead. Please, can we mute?
Excuse me, sir, please, can you take that again? You said these activities are called, cost
I will
driver.
take it. Please hold on, Moses. Please hold on. Somebody is conflicting the class. All right, I will take it again. The activities that give rise to overhead is what we call the cost driver. The factors that are giving rise to overhead costs is what is called the cost driver. This cost driver are now used to account for overhead. This cost driver are used to determine how overhead will be shared and allocated to various products. Now you may ask yourself, what is overhead cost really? In our last class, we explained that cost can be categorized into two. Cost can be categorized into two. You have your direct cost and you have your indirect cost. Direct cost, these are costs incurred and can be traced to a specific unit of products. Direct cost, these are costs incurred and can be traced to a specific unit of products. For example, let us look at Nigerian Bottling Company. Nigerian Bottling Company manufactures Coke, Sprite, and Fanta. This company has three major products: Coca-Cola, Fanta Orange, and Sprite. Any cost incurred that can be traced to a bottle of Coke, this cost will be regarded as a direct cost. And this cost will be allocated directly to Coke products, Coca-Cola products. Any cost incurred that can be traced to a bottle of Fanta, this cost will be classified as a direct cost. And this cost will be allocated directly to a bottle of Fanta. Any cost incurred that can be traced to a bottle of Sprite, this cost will be classified as direct cost. And this will be allocated and charged directly to Sprite. We now have indirect cost. Indirect cost, these are costs incurred, but cannot be traced to a specific product. These are costs incurred, but cannot be traced to a specific product. A good example is factory rents. Let us assume Nigerian Bottling Company has incurred a factory rent of 1 million. At this factory, the company manufactures Coca-Cola, Fanta, and Sprite. Now the question we have to resolve as accountants is, how do we apportion these factory rents to the three products involved? At this factory, we manufacture Coca-Cola. At this factory, we manufacture Fanta. at this factory we manufacture Sprites. We now incurred factory rent of 1 million naira. Now the question is, how do we apportion this 1 million naira to this product? This factory rent cannot be traced to a specific product. You cannot trace the factory rent to Coca-Cola or Sprite or Fanta. It's for all the products. This cost is now an indirect cost. The indirect cost is what we call overhead cost. The challenge accountant is faced with is, how do we account for the overhead cost? In modern manufacturing environment, overhead costs constitute the larger proportion of the company's cost. In modern manufacturing environment, overhead costs constitute the larger or the largest cost of a company. So the question is, which we must think of as an accountant. How do we account for this overhead cost? There are two ways you can account for your overhead costs. You can either use the traditional absorption costing method, or you can use the activity-based costing method. Under the traditional absorption costing method, you account for overhead by using a single factor. This single factor could be labor hour or machine hour. Under the activity-based costing, you account for overhead by using the different activities that has contributed to the overhead cost. These activities are called the cost drivers. Cost drivers are factors that contributed to cost. We explained this last week. Thereafter, we solve a question on this topic. Deliberately, I've tried to explain this again because I'm aware that some students are joining the class tonight. So any question, please? Any question, please?
So yes.
If there,
Yeah.
I can hear you, please.
Good evening, sir.
Oliver.
Yes, sir. Just for a clarification, sir, you said these activities that influence cost, right? Is that the right word? That the activities
Yes.
that influence these costs are called cost drivers.
Correct, please.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome, please. Activities that influence cost are referred to as the cost driver. Factors that influence cost are referred to as the cost driver. All right, we shall be taking question number two on this material. If you check your study pack, you are looking at question number illustration, I think question 3, page 138. Check page 138. XYZ Limited. XYZ Limited. Let me go to that page on this material. That is on our soft copy material. If you check the copy material, you have X, Y, Z. Yeah, we are looking at this question tonight. Are we good to go, please? Please, let's have the question open. Now, that question you have in your study pack, please, you are going to make small adjustment to the question. If you look at the screen, please look at your screen. I will read the question and I will draw your attention to the areas. I think just 2 areas. We need to correct 2 areas in some figures there. All right, let's go to the question together. XYZ Limited, XYZ Nigeria Limited is considering the use of activity-based costing approach in its overhead recovery. The company manufactures 2 products known as standard and doulos. Known as standard and doulos. Details of production for the 2 products are given below. We have standard, we have doulos. Annual production in units, 24,000 units for each product. Direct labor time per unit in hours, 4 hours for standard, 4 hours for 5 hours for doulos. Number of special parts per unit, 2 for standard, 8 for doulos. Number of setup per batch, 2, 6. Number of sales invoices issued per year, 100 and 480. Number of separate material issued per batch, 22. Batch size in units. Please, you need to make correction here. If you look at your material, the material shared, you have 200, but the correct figure should be 2,000. Please, you can adjust it by taking a note of this. In the material shared, what you have is 200, but what should be there is 2,000. Please correct. Next, the analysis of the overhead cost produce the following information. Setup cost, 585,600. The cost driver is number of setup. This is cost driver. This is the cost driver. Special parts cost, special part handling cost, 480,000. The cost driver is number of special parts. Customer invoicing cost, 332,000. The cost driver is number of invoices. Material handling cost, 504,000. The cost driver is number of batches. Other overhead costs, please. You need to adjust this other overhead cost. What you have in the material shared is 386,000. But the correct figure should be 864,000. What you have in the material share is 364,000. I can't find the question. Why can't you find the question? The question is on that material. Page 138. Is it 138? No. 146. I'm mistaking this for. Please go to 146. Not 38, 146. Check page 146. Now, other overhead, the correct figure should be 864,000. The cost driver is labor hours. Total overhead is correct, 2,665,600,000. Requirements A. Use the traditional approach to determine the direct labor hourly rate for the company. Requirement 2. Use the direct labor hour rate to compute the overhead rate to a unit of standard and dealer's product. Requirement C or 3. Determine the cost driver rate using the activity-based costing approach. Then requirement 4. Compute the overhead rate per unit of each product using activity-based costing approach. All right. Please, is there any aspect of the question we require further clarification? Is there any aspect of the question anybody require further clarification? If there's none, we move to requirement 1. Use the traditional approach to determine the direct labor hourly rate for the company. Let us deal with this. I want to determine direct labor hourly rate using the traditional approach. Okay. Oh, no, the network is just hanging. Let me look at the charts. Who is this man? I've never used glue before in my life. This man. The system is hanging because if you are online and you are using digital pad, it drags the system down. All right, suggested solution. Suggested solution. We start with 1. Using the traditional costing approach. Calculate direct labor, hourly rate. To calculate this is calculated as total overhead cost, divided by total direct labor hour. Your direct labor hourly rate is calculated as the total overhead cost divided by the total direct labor hour. If you look at the question, the total overhead cost is equal to how much, please? 2 million.
600.
600. This is given to us. Then we need to calculate total direct labor hours. We have 2 products. You have standard and you have doulos. Now, please check the question. What is the labor hour per unit of standard?
4 hours.
4 hours. Can we all see it? To produce a unit of standard, we require 4 hours. Go back to the question again. Check. What is the labor hour per unit of doulos?
5 hours.
5 hours. To produce a unit of doulos, the labor hour is 5 hours. Now go back to the question. How many units of standard will this company produce?
24,000 units.
Production volume is 24,000. For doulos also, 24,000. You can now get total labor hour for standard. To produce 1 unit, we require 4 hours of labor. If I now produce 24,000 units, what is the total hours of labor here?
96,000.
This will give me 96,000 labor hours. Then this will give me how many hours?
120,000 labor hours.
120,000 labor hours. Now, total labor hours. The addition of labor hours for standard and labor hour for doulos total labor hours for standard plus total labor hours for doulos will give us total direct labor hours. Please sum up.
216,000.
That means the total direct labor hours required for production is 216,000 labor hours. 216,000 labor hours. You can return now to compute your direct labor hourly rate. Can come here. Now come here. Direct labor hourly rate is equal to total overhead 2,665,600 divided by total direct labor hours 216,000. Please, what do you have here? 12 naira 34 kobo. This is the direct labor hourly rate. Thank you, Alexia. You are done with requirements A or requirements 1. We move straight to requirements B. Let us check requirement B. Please, you are encouraged to write down in class. The reason is not because you won't have this after the class. The reason is to keep us active in class. There's no way lecturer can see you. So if you are sleeping, I can't see you. Okay? Requirement 2. Use the direct labor hourly rate to compute the overhead rate to a unit of standard and doulos products. Okay, I want to use the direct labor hourly rate to calculate overhead rate per unit of standard, overhead rate per unit of doulos. I can go to this quickly. I can move to this quickly. Look at it, please. Overhead rates per unit of standard. This is equal to, the hourly rate is 12 naira 34 kobo per direct labor hour. Direct labor hourly rate. This is 12 naira 0.34. Please, what is the labor hours required to produce a unit of standard?
96 hours.
That
4
is
hours.
the
4 hours. 4 hours.
4 hours. To produce 1 unit, I want to calculate overhead rates per unit. So I'm going to pick hours required to produce 1 unit. Hello? I want to calculate overhead rates per unit of standard. I will now say, okay, what is the hours, labor hours required to produce 1 unit of standard? I require 4 hours of labor. and the hourly rate is 12 naira 34 kobo. Please multiply. That will give you the overhead per unit.
49.36.
49.3. Then you move to the second product. Julius, please feel free to ask questions. Some of us are joining the class tonight.
49.36 per unit.
Yes, per unit, that's correct. Then you come here, we have 12.34. What is the labor hours to produce 1 unit of Julius? 5 hours. Please,
61.7 per unit.
it's 1.70. Look at it. This is overhead rate per unit of standard, 49.36. Overhead rate per unit of Julius, 61.70. All right, that's fine. We are done with the B part. Yeah, Alexia. We move to requirement C. We move to requirement C. Requirement C says calculate the cost driver rate using activity-based costing. Requirement C says requirement C. The terminal says calculate cost driver rate for each activity using activity-based costing, ABC. To calculate cost driver rate, please note, your cost driver rate is also the absorption rate per unit of cost driver. Your cost driver rate is also your absorption rate per unit of cost driver. List out the activity. Moses, why are you touching my screen? List out your activity, the activities, we have setup cost. How much, please? The cost pool. What is the amount for setup?
5,8,600. 5,8,600. 5,600.
What is the cost driver?
Number of setups.
The cost driver here is number of setups. Activity 2, special parts handling costs. How much, please?
480,000.
480,000. What is the cost driver here?
Number of special parts.
Special
parts.
Number 3, we have customer invoicing. Amount is 232 000. What is the cost driver here?
Number of invoices.
Number of invoices. Number 4, we have what?
Material handling cost.
Material handling cost. Amount is
864,000.
Oh, okay, that is the last one, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, we have 4.
No, sir. It's 504. 504.
Uh-huh.
That's not the last one. Yeah. Sorry. 504,000.
Okay, no problem. You have 500
And 4,000.
4,000. The cost driver here is
Number of badges.
Number of batches. Then we have other overhead.
Yeah.
Other overhead costs. Amount is
864,000.
4,000. The cost driver is labor
Yeah.
hours. I don't need the total here. I will now calculate cost driver for each activity. I'm going to calculate cost driver rates for each activity. You start with the first one. Set up cost driver rate. This is calculated as is equal to set up overhead cost divided by the number of the cost driver. What is the cost driver for setup, please?
Number of setups.
Number of setups. So divided by the total number of setups. Divided by total number of setups. Total number. Okay. Total number of setup. Setup overhead cost is 585,600. We are giving that in the question. Is that not, please?
Yes, sir.
Now we need to calculate total number of setups. We need to calculate total number of setups. So I'll move down a bit. Total number of setup. What is the setup for standard?
It's 2 badges.
What is the setup for doulos?
6.
No, you are not reading completely. 2 per what?
It said 2 number of setup per badge is 2 for standard. Then
Okay.
6 for deluxe.
Okay. Please, if you look at that question, examiner says 2 setup per batch. For standard, 2 setup per batch. For deluxe, 6 setup per batch. That means I need to determine the number of batches first. I have here 2 per batch. Here I have 6 per batch. That means for me to get total number of setup, I need to know the number of batches for standard. I need to also know the number of batches for doulos. The question says 2 setup per batch for standard. For doulos, 6 setup per batch. That means for me to get total number of setups, I need to know the number of batches for the individual product. How many batch is for standard? How many batch is for... Now, if you go back to that question, the last aspect of our table, we are told that batch size units. Look at it. It said batch size units. The batch size in units for standard is 2,000 units in a batch. While the batch size for doulos is 100 units in a batch. The batch size is 2,000 units. Now, please, let us listen carefully. We need to produce 24,000 units of standard. And a batch will contain 2,000 units. How many batches do we need to produce to achieve 24?
12 batches.
Thank you. Let me repeat myself. You know, some might not get it that fast. If you look at it, the total production volume for standard is 24,000 units. And a batch contains 2,000 units. How many batch do we need to produce to achieve 24,000 units? That means if I'm to work this out, I want to show this working now. I'll now come. Number of batches. I will start with standard. Standard, I need to produce 24,000 units. And a batch will contain 2,000 units. That means I must do 12 batches. 12 batches for standard. I will go to doulos. For doulos, I also need to produce 24,000 units of doulos. A batch contains 100 units. Then I must have 240 batches. Yeah. That means batches for standard, 12 batches. I will now come here. Number of setup, 2 setup per batch. You can now have 12 batches. Multiply by 12. That means I'm going to have 24 setups here. Here multiply by 240. I'm going to have how many setups? 1, 4, 4, 0. Now total setup. Please sum up. 24 plus 1440. Please sum up.
1,464.
464. This is the total number of batches of setup. This is the total number of setup. Yes. Oreolua.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening.
Sir, please, I would like to ask how you got the 2,000 that used to divide the total number of batches in the standard.
Do you have the question with you?
Yes, sir.
Now, go to the question. Look at the batch size under the schedule you are giving. That is the last item.
Okay. It says 200.
Please adjust it. I mentioned this at the start of the class.
Okay.
It will be 2,000.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir.
You are welcome, please. Now you have gotten total number of setup. Look at it. Total number of setup is here. I can now calculate the cost driver rate. I can now calculate the cost driver rates. I can come here and say, I can do like this. Total overhead of setup, 585,600. Total number of setup divided by 1464. What is the cost driver rate here? $400 naira.
400 per second. Yeah.
Thank you. This is 400 naira per set up. You have resolved setup cost driver rates. You have resolved setup cost driver rate. You can move to activity 2. Activity 2 is special parts handling cost. Activity 2. Special parts handling cost driver rate. This is calculated as special parts handling overhead costs divided by, please, what is the cost driver for special parts handling cost?
Number of special parts.
Number of special parts divided by total number of special parts. Now go back to the question. Please, back to the question. What is the special parts for standard? What is the special part for doulos? Somebody can check and read out. Yes, Oliver.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at it. Special point. Okay, it's 2 for standard and 8 for doulos.
Please read what you have in the.
Okay, it is the second one. It is immediately after direct labor parts per unit in hours. So we have number of special points per unit, not points, but parts. I think it's a
So it should
typographical
be parts.
error. Yeah, it's
Number
parts,
of
not points.
special parts per what?
Per unit.
Please remove that point. It should be special parts. Examiner says number of special parts per unit. You know it. Hello guys. Examiner says number of special parts per unit. For doulos, for standard is 2. While for doulos is how many?
It's 8.
8. Number of special parts per unit. For doulos, for standard 2, for doulos 8. That means examiner has attached per unit to it. The examiner has attached per unit. So if you are going to solve it, you need to consider that factor. I know the overhead cost of special parts. I want to calculate total
Number of special parts.
Number of special parts. You take standard. This is equal to 2 per unit. 2 special parts per unit. And I'm going to produce 24,000 units of doulos. That will give me 48,000 special parts for doulos. Standard 2 per unit. Doulos 8 per unit, special parts. I'm going to produce 24,000 units of doulos. Please multiply. What do we have? Let me check. Alexa is always giving me figure.
192,000.
Yeah, 192. She's always sending figure across the chart. Now total.
$240 total special parts.
240. So I can take the total down here. $240,000. You have total number of special parts. You can calculate your special parts cost driver rate now. Can come here and say special parts cost driver rate is equal to total overhead special parts 480,000 divided by total number of special parts 240,000. This is equal to what, please?
₦2 per special parts.
Thank you. Please, guys, you must always indicate the cost driver. ₦2 per special parts. Please, you have to indicate the cost driver. If you write only ₦2, the examiner may ignore your answer. You need to tell us what is the cost driver of special parts. What is the major factor that influences the cost of special parts? So you need to tell us this, please. All right. We are done with activity 3. So activity 2. We move to activity 3. customer invoice. Is that not?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Activity 3. Customer invoicing. Cost driver rates. Now also please note, I'm writing the formula all the time because I'm trying to explain in the class. In exam, you might be battling with time. You don't need to be writing the formula all the time. Because I need to explain to students, I'm stating the formula all the time. This formula becomes customer invoice overhead cost divided by what is the cost driver for customer invoicing?
Number of invoices.
Number of invoices. So I'm going to get total number of invoices. So the two products, we have, I want to get total number of invoices. Now go and check standard. How many invoices for standard?
100.
For standard, we have 100 invoices. How many invoices for dealers?
480.
Is it attached to anything?
Per year, and it's just 1 year.
Okay, it's per year. So it's not attached to unit, it's not attached to batch, it's not attached to hour.
No.
So
Okay.
I don't need to multiply anything here. Total becomes 580. You can now calculate the cost driver rate. This becomes, for this, I can manage here to say total overhead of customer invoicing, how much?
232,000.
Divided by total invoices.
580.
Is equal to what, please?
400 per invoice.
Thank you. 400 naira
Per invoice.
per invoice. You are done with activity 3. We move to activity 4. We have material handling, material. Let me take that off. Material handling cost. Material handling cost driver. This is equal to material handling overhead cost divided by, what is the cost driver here, please?
Number of batches.
Number of batches. The cost driver for material handling is number of batches. So I'm going to get total number of batches. I think we have completed it.
Yeah.
Let's go to the first working we did. That should be our
Number of
let's go
setups.
setups here. I think we should have this figure there.
Yeah, it's 1, 2, 6, 4.
So that is
12 batches and 240 batches. 12 batches and 240 batches.
Look at it here. For standard, we have, look at it, please. For standard, we have 12 batches. For doulos, we have 240 batches. You can sum this together. Number of batches, 252 batches. Is that not it?
Yes, please.
Number of batches, 252. Don't need to waste time here. Just pick your 252. Yes, Alexia. I'd like to hear your voice.
So that batches there is both of them are only 2. It's different from the setups.
Yes, of course. You know, we calculated batches, the setups. For this question, we have 2 setups per batch.
Yes.
That is for standard. Then for doulos, we have 8 setups per batch. We now calculate.
Yeah. Yes.
We now calculated the number of setups. That was used for activity 1. Now for activity 4, examiner says the cost driver is number of batches. So how many batches do we have for standard?
12 batches.
How many batches do we have for doulos?
240
batches. Is that clear, Alexia?
No, sir.
Okay.
You know, he give us number of separate materials issued per batch, and he give only 2 and 2.
Okay.
Different from the setup figure, because the figure he gives 6 for deluxe.
Okay. So we go to that place now. Let me take you back to that question. Since it's becoming, all right, look at it. Now look at it, please.
Yeah.
Number of per batch. This is setup. Number of setup batch for standard 2.
Yes.
For doulos 6. Is that clear?
Yes. Check
Now,
the separate materials, sir. He give 2, 2.
okay, look at it. Number of separate material issue per batch 2, 2.
2. Oh.
That's not a problem. But examiner says, please look at this, please. Cost driver. The cost driver for material is what? Number of batches. Hello, are you there? The cost driver for material is, he didn't say number of separate material issued. He said the cost driver for material handling is the number of batches. Are you there?
Everything.
The examiner didn't say number of separate material per batch. He said The cost driver for material handling cost is
Okay.
number of batches. Is that clear, please? Hello.
Not tricky. Oh.
Is it getting better, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I can come here. So the examiner says the overhead cost of material. The cost driver is number of batches. So the total number of batches I have 12 batches for standard, 240 batches for Julius. So I'll come here. What is the overhead of standard? What is the overhead cost of material handling? Total overhead?
504,000.
504,000 divided by total number of batches, 252 batches. What do you have, please?
2,000 per handling cost.
Per what?
Handling cost. Materials. 2,000 per material.
No, correct yourself. What is the cost driver? 2,000 naira per
batches.
Per
Per
batch.
batches.
2,000 per
batch.
Examiner says the cost driver for material handling is the number of batches. Is that clear, Oliver?
Yes, clear, sir.
Another to 10 is per batch. All right. The last one is other overhead. The last one is other overhead. 5. Other overhead cost driver rate. This is equal to, what is the cost driver here?
Labor hours.
This is equal to other overhead cost divided by total direct labor hour. Total labor hours. We have computed this before, is that not, please?
Let me check. I think so.
We have calculated this in solution 1.
Yes. Yes.
What is the total direct labor hour?
216,000 hours.
No, 260,000 labor hours. So I'll come here. What is the other overhead cost?
864,000
divided by total direct labor hour, 216,000. What do you have, please?
4 naira per. Sorry, 4 naira per labor hour.
Thank you. 4 naira per
labor hour.
direct labor hour. Thank you. Is direct labor hour. You are done with this part of this question. Any question, please? Now, let me quickly say that For some of us that sat for last diet exam, November 2024 diet exam, this question was tested. This question was solved in the class. Now, this question was repeated in the exam. What the examiner did was to multiply all the figures by 5. Volume of production, in this question you have 24,000. Examiner multiplied by 5. He changed the volume to 120,000 units. When you get to direct labor hours per unit, in this question you have 4 hours for standard, 5 hours for dealers. Examiner multiply by 5. That gave 20 hours for standard, 25 hours for dealers. All the figures were multiplied by 5. The requirement 4 says what, please? Somebody can read. Oliver, please read requirement 4.
Compute the overhead rates per unit of each product using the ABC approach.
Compute the overhead rate per unit of each product using the activity-based costing. That means I want to get overhead rate per unit. So I'm going to add the overhead rate per unit for setup, special material handling, customer invoicing, material handling cost, and other overhead. I want to get the overhead rate per unit. In this question, we have 5 activities. So I will get, for each activity, I will now sum up. That will now give me per unit. I will now sum up, that will now give me per unit. Do I have space here? Examiner says compute the overhead rate per unit of each product. Compute the overhead rates per unit of each product using activity-based costing. Okay? This is the requirements. I can move up a bit. You have products. You have the products. You have standard. You have dealers. You start with the first overhead, the setup cost. Okay, please, what is the cost? What is the cost driver for setup, please?
Number of setup.
What is the cost driver rate for setup?
Number of setups.
Number of setup.
400 naira. 400
naira. 400 naira.
400 naira per setup.
Per what?
Setup.
Per setup. Thank you. Now, please look at this. Please look at this. Examiner says the cost driver rate as calculated in C. We have 400 naira per setup. I will now come here. The product, standard. How many setup do we have for standard?
We have
dealers.
Sorry, we have 24.
24 setup here. We have 1,440 setup here. And the cost driver rate is 400 naira per setup. Multiplied by 400 naira. Multiplied by 400 naira. What is the total overhead? What is the total setup overhead cost for standard? Please multiply.
96.
9,600. I'll place under standard.
9,600.
96. What is the total overhead? What is the total setup cost for dealers?
576,000.
576,000. Now, if you sum up these two, 9,600 plus 576,000, the total should give you 585,600.
That's correct.
That is the total setup. Now we have now shared the setup into setup cost for standard, setup cost for dealers. Are we there, please?
Yes, sir.
We have been able to apportion the setup now. Total setup cost. The one that is meant for standard, 9,600. Because we calculated the cost driver rate to be 400 naira per setup. And we have 24 setups for standard. We have 1,440 setups for dealers. That means the setup overhead cost for standard is 9,600. While the setup overhead cost for dealers is 576,000. You move to the next one. The next one is
Special handling cost.
Parts handling. What is the cost driver rate for special parts handling cost?
It is 2 naira per special parts.
2 naira per special parts. I will now come here. Underline this slightly. I have standard. How many special parts do I have for standard?
48,000.
Thank you. I have 48,000 special parts here. And I have 192, Abi?
Yes, sir.
And we said 2 naira per special part. Multiply by 2 naira. Multiply by 2 naira. Get the total overhead, total setup overhead for standard.
96,000.
I'm trying to put this in bracket. This will give me 96,000. Then for jewelers, place under jewelers.
192.
What do you have?
192.
384,000.
384,000. To confirm that you are correct, sum 96,000 plus 384,000. It should give you the total overhead of setups.
Yes.
Can you see it? Now you have been able to share the setup. You have been able to share the special parts handling cost between standard products and dealers products. You move to the third one. We have customer invoice. Customer invoicing cost. What is the cost driver rate here, please?
400 naira.
400 naira.
No, it's not complete.
400 naira per invoice.
Where is it?
400 naira per invoice. You now come here. You have standard. You have dealers. How many invoice for standard?
100 invoice.
100 invoices. How many invoice for dealers?
480.
480. At the rate of 400 naira per invoice. At the rate of 400 naira per invoice. This should give you how much?
40,000.
40,000. This will give us how much?
192.
One what?
92.
192,000. You can reconfirm 40,000 plus 192 will give us 232,000.
Yes.
Total customer invoice overhead. Then the fourth one, we have material handling
Cost.
cost. What is the cost driver rate here, please?
2,000 naira per badges. Per badge. Per badge.
Per badge, thank you. 2,000 naira per badge. I'll come here. I have standard. I have 12 batches. Dealers. I have 240 batches. And the rate is 2,000 naira per batch. At a rate of 2,000 naira per batch. Go.
Yeah, the standard is 24,000.
24,000 naira.
Deluxe is
How much?
480,000.
480,000. You can reconfirm the total we give. If you sum the two together, you are going to have 504,000. That reconfirm the total material handling overhead cost. Then number 5, other overhead. Other overhead cost. What is the cost driver rate here, please?
It's labor hour.
Labor hour. So total labor hours for standard, total labor hours for dealers.
For standard is 96,000 hours.
We
At the rate of
this in our part A. This is 96,000 labor hours. This is 120,000 labor hours at a rate of
4
per labor hour. At a rate of 4 naira per labor hour. Please work this out. What do you have? Total for standard
380. 384,000.
384,000. Total for dealers
480,000.
480,000. Now you can now get total overhead for individual products. Total overhead for individual products. Let's go up small. All right. That's too much.
For standard.
Don't worry, I'll push it up back. I'll
For
push
standard.
it back. It's okay now?
Total for standard is 553,600.
So let me take it off small so that everybody can see it, the total. Oh, okay. Total for standard, 5 words.
553,600.
553,600. Total for dealers.
2112.
2114.
2112.
2112,000. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Confirming it. Two one one two.
All right, thank you guys. We have gotten the total overhead for individual products. We have been able to share the overhead between the products, standard and dealers. But I want to get overhead rate per unit. Examiner says, calculate overhead rate per unit. You have calculated the total overhead cost. What is the overhead cost per unit? You now move to volume of production. Now introduce production volume. Production volume. Yeah, this is Naira amount. This is Naira amount. This is 24,000 units. Oh, not Naira. This is 24,000 units. This is in units. Yeah, let me check. Thank you. You now divide. You divide 553,600 divided by this. Can I say overhead rates per unit? This is equal to 23 points. Let me check. 23.1 approximately 1, or I can say, no, this should be maybe 7.
Is it 23?
And this is 88 Naira. We are done with it. So please, you have to try to interpret question to yourself. Examiner says calculate overhead rate per unit. Calculate overhead rate per unit. So when you get your total, then you now divide by number of units produced. This is appropriate response to this exam. Any question, please? Any question, please? Okay. We have like 30 minutes. Let me refer you to last direct question. This is too long and it's too simple.
But it's tricky.
Direct question. Now, last direct question is not on your study pack. This question is not on the study pack. One is available here. Look at last direct question, please. Of course, we cannot solve it within 30 minutes, but look at it. I will read. To appreciate what the examiner did now. The question says, this question on your screen, OKK Dem Nigeria Limited. Let's read quickly. The question says, OKK Dem Nigeria Limited is considering the use of activity-based costing approach in its overhead recovery. The company manufactures two products known as AFAM and BITAM. Examiner changed the product's name. Details of production of the two products are given below. You have AFAM and BITAM. Annual production in units, 120,000 for each. If you multiply 5 by 24,000, it will give you 120,000. Direct labor time per unit in hours, 20 for AFA, 25 for beta. Examiner multiply by 5. Number of special points. It should be special parts. Number of special parts per unit. 10 for AFAM, 40 for BITAM. Number of setup per batches. 10 for AFAM, 30 for BITAM. Number of sales invoices issued per year, multiply by 5. In the question we just solved, we are given 100 and 480. If you multiply 5 by 100, that will give you 500. If you multiply 480 by 5, that will give you 2,400. Number of separate material issued per batch, 10. Examiner multiply by 5. Batch size, units, 10,500. The question we just solved, we have 2,100. This question is exactly the question we solved. Examiner just changed the figure by multiplying all these figures by 5. Next, analysis of the overhead. Setup cost. In the question we just solved, the setup cost was 585,600. Now multiply 585,600 by 5. Here the amount is 2,928,000. Number of special handling costs. Please look at this. This is exactly the same question we just saw. Look at the requirements. Requirements A1. Use the traditional approach. Determine the hourly rate for the direct labor hourly rate for the company. A2. Use the direct labor hour rate to compute overhead rates to a unit of AFAM and BTAM. B1. Determine the cost driver rate using activity-based costing approach. B2. Compute the overhead rate per unit of each product using ABC. Then examiner now added C. Examiner says, if the unit material and labor costs are as shown below, determine the unit selling prices where the company has edged to a policy of 20% profit margin using the 2 overhead absorption method. The only addition to this question, the only new thing added is requirement C. The only new thing added to this question is requirement. Assuming requirement C is available in hello, let us assume that we have this requirement C included in the previous question we saw. Let us assume that we have requirement C in the previous question we have solved. How are we going to undo this requirement C? I'm going to leave the question as an assignment for you guys. I'm now asking you guys, assuming you have requirement C attached. Oh, now let us assume requirement C is added to this question we have treated. How do we undo requirement C? So I'm going to treat it with this question. This is a funny question. You know, this guy is always asking for funny question. First is somebody is asking me a question. In fact, let me know this somebody. Ablatif is asking a question if we are part of, if we provide ICAN, if you provide question for ICAN. One is all tuition houses, you are expected to send in question to ICAN. And ICAN is at liberty to decide which question to pick. They can decide to pick any lecturer's question. There is no way I will know if they will pick my question or not. My own is to research and give question, if I can, to ICAN. There is no way I will know whether ICAN will pick my question or ICAN will not pick my question. ICAN has over 500 question banks. Nobody can say what ICAN will pick. Like last diet, 2 questions I solved in class was repeated in that exam. I solved question on activity-based costing. It was repeated in the exam, 20 marks. I solved question on variance analysis. It was repeated 100% in the exam. What we try to do is please review your notes very well. You are likely to find question we solve in class, in the exam. And if you have such situation, that will be to your advantage because you can maximize the mark. You have to create time to review what you are being taught. All right. I want to treat question C using this solution we have done.
Sir, can you please detect the question?
Now go back to that question. Don't worry. Look at that. Look at requirement C. Please assume this requirement C. Okay, let me even copy it. Is part of the question we are solving of. We just solved. Let me copy it. I will now take it to part of the question here. After the class, we are going to share this material. I want to put it here. I want to put this here. Okay, I can put it here. Yes. I should be able to do this in 20 minutes and I'll leave the class. You'll be able to finish in 15 minutes. 30 minutes. All right, look at it. It has dropped. If the unit material, please look at your screen. Of course, this part will not be in the question you have at home. Look at this. If the unit material and labor costs are as shown below, determine the selling prices where the company adheres to a policy of 20% profit margin using the tool absorption, the tool overhead absorption method. Now let's go to that solution. Material cost 400 naira for now this will now be, I will change this to be this, I will change this to be my standard. This will be my, yes, my doulos. Okay. Material cost 400 naira for standard, 500 naira for doulos. Labor cost 100 naira for standard, 125 for Julius. Please let me treat this question to explain to you. Let me treat this question, or let's treat this question together. Okay, it shifted it. It shifted it new. It's supposed to be, it just shifted this. I'll pick this. Is 24. Just a shift, it's a gap here. This is 88 naira. Because we were shifting the, because I insert or I copied figure to it. So you have to shift that figure down. That shift down. I can treat this now.
Yeah.
I will now take this as my E. Calculate selling prices using one, traditional approach, and two, using activity-based costing approach. I'll start with the first one. One, traditional approach. You have your products. You have standard. You have dealers. Material cost, that is direct material cost. Direct material cost. This is 400 naira. This is 500 naira. Direct labor cost. This is 100 naira. This is 125. You can sum these two. This will give you your prime cost. In this question, we don't have direct expenses. So direct material cost plus direct labor cost will give you the prime cost because we don't have direct expenses. So this will give me 500. This will give me 625. I'll now come here. Next. Overhead.
The standard is 49 naira.
Correct. Overhead cost per unit. For standard, we calculated this in B. This is 49 point what?
36.
36. This is what? 61.70. You can now get full cost per unit. Full cost per unit. Please sum. This will give you 549.3. And this will give you, please sum, 70. What do you have here?
686.7. 86.7.
86.7. You have gotten the cost. Examiner now says the profit margin is 15% or what? Is that not?
20%. 20%.
Is it okay? 20%.
20%.
The examiner says 20% profit margin. We have to be careful here. Profit margin is on sales. If 20% is your profit margin, that means your cost, 20% of your sales is profit.
80%.
I want to keep this up. Let it move us more. But what you have is cost. I will show ourselves how to tackle this. Okay? I'll come here. My profits. My profits. I will add that will now give me the selling price. There's two ways I can do this. Look at it. So please look at this. Profit is equal to 20% of sales price. Profit is 20% of my sales price. And I know that, assuming, I'm just doing math, assuming, please, I'm just saying, assume sales price is equal to X naira. Assume your sales price is X naira. That means profit is equal to 20% of X. 20% of X is equal to 0.2 of X. Or I can take it straight. 20% of X is simply X. Look at my cost. Cost is equal to sales price minus profit. Is that not, please?
Yeah.
Your cost is equal to sales price minus profit. Is that not, please?
Yeah.
Good. I know my cost here to be, for the first product, the cost here is 549.36. My sales is represented with X minus my profit 0.2 of X. What is X, please? That means 549.36 is 0.2x. This will give me 0.8x. That means I can get X. My X is equal to, oh, this is 549.36 divided by 0.8. is. What is your X, please?
686.7.
6 what?
686.7.
6, 8.
6.7.
You have this figure?
Yes. 686.7.
686.7. That means the selling price here is 686.7. If you compute 20% of 686, that will be your profit. Compute your profit. You can do a work back. Your profit is selling price minus 686.7 minus the cost.
137.34.
686.7 minus 540.36. This will give me the profit here is
137.34.
137.34. You have gotten for standard. You can go for doulos too. Without wasting time, if I want to get for doulos, I don't need to go through long routes. I will just do like this. Want to get for doulos, just come here. Sales price for doulos.
686.
Sales price of doulos is equal to 686.7. That is the cost. Divided by 0.8. If the profit is 20%, that means the cost is 80%. You can gross back now. If your profit is 20%, that means the cost is 80%. If I want to return 100% selling price, I will just gross up. Look at it, please. I've just done mathematics. You can also do it this way. Profit is 20% margin. Therefore, cost is 80%. Then sales price is equal to 100 over 80. At 80%, our cost is equal to, at 80%, our cost is 686.7. What is our sales price? Multiply by 686.70. What is the selling price, please?
$85.
What do you have?
$8,583.
858.37.
Yeah.
I have 858.375. Once you get your selling price, you can return back to this question. Selling price is 858.375. What is the profit? The profit here is 171. To get your profit, selling price minus cost.
171,675.
171,675. This is under traditional approach. If you now want to do for, it's a long question tonight. If I want to do for, I can, I have to shift it down. So. No. Don't want that. So please take it off. Let me go into my space. Let me check. Wow. I have just 1 minute. I'm just trying to explain this. I didn't even plan this.
System yẹn ti kún sá, ti load.
My system is full. I have so much. I don't undo, Joe. I don't want this. Why am I having this on my system? Okay. Undo. I'll save this now.
Is there any sùúrù fún? If not, nothing will happen.
Now, what you just need to do, when you get to activity based now, then you are now going to take, let me see if I can go down now. I can go down here, I can go down here. I can go down here. Okay. Can come here. Let me, just 1 minute, let me see if I can move this down, no problem. I will solve it like that here. Don't worry. Don't worry. They just allow me 5 minutes. I should be able to round off 5 minutes. I'll just come here, pick my pen. To pick my pen. Okay. Yeah, let me use here. Okay. I'll come here. Calculation of selling price using ABC. I have the products, standard, Julius, the raw material cost, that will not change. This is 400, this is 500. The raw labor cost will also not change. This is 100, 125. So the prime cost, this is 500, 625. Then overhead. Now the overhead cost based on activity ABC. Here we have 23.07. Here we have
88 naira.
88. The only difference is that overhead cost per unit. So under activity base, the overhead cost for standard is 23.37, while for doulas is 88. Then you can now get your full cost. Your full cost here,
523.07.
the full cost here, 523.07. 23.07. What do you have here, please?
713.
7113.
713. This is full cost per unit based on activity. Then your profit, then your selling price. Examiner says the profit is 20% margin. Examiner say, well, if the examiner say margin, that means it's on sales price. If the examiner says profit margin, that means margin refers to selling price. But if the examiner says markup refers to cost price. So if your profit is 20% margin, that means your cost is 80%, because selling price will be 100%. So what do I need to do? I will just gross up my cost from 80% to 100%. I will just gross up my cost from 80%. Examiner says the profit margin is 20%. If the profit margin is 20%, that means the cost margin is 80%. 20% of our sales price is profit. That means 80% of our cost is part of our selling price. If I now want to gross up to 100%, I will just come here. I'll just come here. This figure here. This figure here. This one I'll just say the working here. Selling price here for standard is equal to 523.07 divided by 0.8. That will give me 100% selling price. They give us
653.8375. 8375.
8375. You can approximate to 84. Once you get this, you can get your profits. Your profit for standard becomes 653.8375. 8375 minus our cost 523.07. This will give me a profit of 130.7675. Then the second one, gross up.
8912.25.
Selling price here, 891.25.
25.
The profit.
178.25.
0.25. Thank you for your time. We are taking 10 minutes extra. We are done with it. Of course, this was not part of the question originally. I only brought it in from last diet question to explain what you need to do. Is that clear, please?
Yeah.
All right,
sir.
please.